Hi, in this video we'll be talking about market efficiency and how do we determine the output that we need to produce at to have an efficient market. So before we start, let's understand from the buyer's perspective what do they get from buying a good. So we will define willingness to pay as the maximum amount the buyer will pay for a good. What does that mean? If you were wanting to buy a bag and the bag you value it at $10, then anything above that you will not buy it, right? But anything below $10 you will buy it. So you put the value at $10, the good. Basically you value it. It's not priced at $10, but you value it to be $10. And so if any price is below $10 or equals to $10, then you will buy the good because you think that you benefited from having the good. And so the consumer surplus is like your marginal benefit, and it is basically you value the bag at $10 and maybe the price is only $5, so you have a benefit of 5. So that's why the consumer surplus is just the willingness to pay minus away the price. So you can see from here how it looks like. Let's say your price is $30 and at this quantity you're willing to pay $50 for it. So in that sense you have earned a consumer surplus of $20. And if you want to find the total consumer surplus at every given price, then you just need to take the area, because you imagine you take all these vertical lines and add them up. Then by understanding calculus, you know that means this is the area under the graph. So actually the total consumer surplus is just the area under the demand curve but above the price. And let's see how a change in price can reduce our CS or increase it. So by having higher prices, it actually reduces our consumer surplus, because instead of paying here, you pay this now. Meaning that your extra benefit that you gain from the value of the good is less. So you just imagine now, instead of drawing the whole graph line from here, you only draw it up to here and then you just do it here. So you have two ways of reducing this CS. The first part will be all these people here who are willing to pay on this side of the curve will now be benefiting less. So there's a fall in CS due to higher prices. But because now the people who are willing to pay over here will not buy the good anymore because the price is above it. So this is called the fall in CS due to buyers leaving the market. And now we will flip the whole thing to understand how the producers value the good. So the producers, what do they want? They value the good based on the cost of it. If you have a price higher than your cost, then you can generate profits. So the cost is the value of everything a seller must give up to produce a good. So basically cost in this case is also opportunity cost. And the seller will only produce the good if the price is higher than its cost. So the cost is known as the willingness to sell. For example, you have a bag priced at $5. If you take $6 to produce the bag, then for every bag you sell, you lose $1 in essence. So that's not really what you want. So your cost measures your willingness to sell, because you're only willing to sell anything less than $5. And likewise, producer surplus now is just the price minus away the cost, or you can put willingness to sell. And for total producer surplus, you just take the area above the supply curve but below the price. So you got the price, anything below it, then you'll sell it. So these are your producer surplus in total. And in that essence, we can write out these formulas. Consumer surplus is the value minus away the price. So it's the buyer's gain from participating in the market. And for producer surplus, it is the price minus away the cost to sellers. So it's the seller's gain from participating in the market. And then your total surplus is actually your consumer plus your producer surplus. So if you take this and this, you add together, actually this minus P will cancel out this P. So what you're left with is actually the value to buyers minus the cost to sellers. And that is actually just the gains, the total gains from trading. So like the buyers buy from you and the sellers sell to you. So that means it is like how much, this is like your benefit minus away your costs to the market. Because your buyers are the one that benefit and your sellers cost you need to reduce from it. So in essence, we actually say that this total surplus is the measure of our society's well-being, and we can consider whether the market allocation is efficient based on this idea of this measurement of total surplus. So what does it mean to be efficient? It means it maximizes this total surplus. You just imagine your society have some well-being. To maximize total surplus, you have either very high value to buyer and very low cost to sellers, which is very good to both parties. So that's why you want your total surplus to be maximum, so that your value to the buyers, your goods are consumed by buyers who value them the most, and goods are produced by the sellers with the lowest cost. So let's see how we determine the output that maximizes this total surplus. Well, we take a graph, we look at it. Okay, so we know our best point that we have is the equilibrium and point. So we just imagine if we produce at Q1. So actually one side note is that anything I've said here, you can prove it using algebra. You just take the formula for area under the graph for total surplus. So you know that consumer surplus is here. If you draw a supply curve, the total producer surplus is here. This total area you just differentiate to find the quantity. So that's what the more mathematical way. But let me give you the intuition behind it. So if you were producing at a higher quantity compared to your equilibrium, then you actually see that this is your supply is representing the cost. Your suppliers will be paying this price, while your buyers will be only benefiting from this price, meaning that the cost of producing it is actually larger than the value to consumer for each marginal unit. So in that case, you can actually increase the total surplus, because you know that your cost is more than your value, so you just decrease the amount of items you're building. Then your cost reduces and then your value to consumer increase. So your willingness to your cost decrease, your value increase. So and then at Q2, what happened? Well, now you know that you value a lot, but your sellers are not. Your cost of producing is less than your value of consuming, meaning for each marginal unit you can actually increase the surplus, because at this point you only produce Q2, then you're stuck here, right? So how do you want to increase the value, the total surplus? Well, but if you can just increase the production to increase the value to the. So while you might be thinking, okay, the value drops, but you're taking into account a larger area now. So that means the total surplus increases, because this is marginal. So this means the next marginal, if you increase the unit by that marginal unit, you are able to benefit from it, because your value outweighs your cost. And then you just keep doing so until the marginal cannot have a value greater than your cost. And what do we result in? Well, if we just look at the graph intuitively, the only place that we will have trouble thinking about whether we have any problems is because Q1 we know we can decrease all the way. So we decrease until here. Oh, we realize it's less than QE. Then we can start increasing it. Then we'll just keep going back and forth until we reach this point QE. And once we are in QE, we actually realize that this maximizes our total surplus. Because if you think about it, we just need to decrease this all the way, and then once we reach this point, our cost equals to value. So we cannot increase our total surplus by decreasing quantity anymore. So we are stuck here. So that's it. So we maximize at QE here from this side, and then we maximize from QE here from this side. So we maximize from both sides. It means that QE maximizes total surplus. So I hope you understand this part, and this is the essence of this video. For this part, now we realize that with assuming that we have perfect competition in the market, so our supply and demand looks like that, we actually get our market equilibrium to be the efficient point, and no other outcome will achieve higher total surplus. So this is the market economy. You just leave it up to the buyers and sellers, and you actually see that the market equilibrium price that they achieve is efficient. And so government doesn't need to come in to change anything to increase society's well-being, because it is already efficient. And we can see how this market economy compares to a central planning. Because suppose we are not allocated by the market, then the central planner must care about the society well-being. And in order to do so, the central planner will need to know everyone's costs, seller's cost, and every buyer's willingness to pay, so that they can allocate the resources efficiently. But this is impossible, and that is why we always say that the centrally planned economies are never going to be market efficient. And this leads us to a fundamental theorem in welfare economics, is that they're assuming that there are markets and market prices for all the goods, and the buyers and sellers are just price takers, so they cannot determine the price. They just take whatever the market intersection point is, and the person's utility only depends on his own consumption. Meaning, if someone else benefit, it doesn't really affect his benefit. He don't feel happiness from other people benefiting. Then the market equilibrium will be efficient. And what do we mean by market failure? Well, it just means that the market is not operating at its efficient point. Some examples of market failure, which we'll dive deeper onto and how we can solve them in the next video, will be the markets are just not perfectly competitive. And so the seller, for example, in a monopoly, the seller can price himself very high, and buyers will have no choice but to buy from him because he's a monopoly. So this makes it an inefficient allocation of resources, because now the buyers don't get the total benefit. And then another way to have market failure is that there is externalities. Meaning externalities, we will talk more about it, will be just a brief idea, is that it is just your benefit to the third parties that you have to account of for the entire society. But we'll talk more about that. That's all for this video. I hope you have enjoyed it. You have understood how we measure well-being, and that is using total surplus, and how we determine the quantity that we need to produce at to maximize this total surplus. I'll see you in the next video. I hope you have enjoyed this one. Please like, share, and subscribe. Bye.